Hello students, welcome to my class on critical reasoning. Today I will be discussing the toughest type of CR questions, which is assumption. To make the best use of the session, I suggest you do two things. Number one, go through my theory sessions on critical reasoning. The link to the session is given on the description below. Number two, create a free sign-up account on our website and try the exercises before you go through the video. The process to sign up for the free account is given in the link below. Now that you would have done both the things, let's start the session. Hi students, welcome to my another practice session on assumption questions. So let's directly start with this. Look at question number 1, and I hope you have already attempted these questions on our portal. So basically you go to the website, sign up, it's a free sign up account. There the exercise has been posted. You just have to log in, attempt this exercise on your own, then come back to this video. It will be much more productive. So assuming that you guys have gone through the exercise on the portal, I'm starting the class here. Those who are coming here directly, you may pause the video, go through the question, and then listen to my answer. Okay. So which one of the following is an assumption required by the argument? So first of all, you need to understand what is the argument. The argument here is this, after this. This one. This is the argument, and the author is asking that this depends on what assumption. So basically, surveys result were probably caused by the respondents' tendency to consider involuntary risk to be greater than they actually are. So this would depend on some assumption. What is that assumption? So first of all, let us deconstruct the argument given to us. So there are two parties given to us, which is risk management experts and public perception. The risk perception of these two parties, it differs. That is what has been given in the paragraph. So, and the example is given is, so let's say when you consider about the risk involved if you're staying near a nuclear plant. So the management experts would say low, that the risks are low, but if you ask general public, they will say that the risk involved are high. Now, if you compare this with the risk perception of getting an X-ray done, so risk management expert would say that the risks there are much more higher, but the general public would say the risks are low. Now, if I leave aside this, psychologists have made a certain comment. Their observation is that when people think that they are voluntary, going for a risk. So for example, when you go for X-ray, maybe for some other thing which is voluntary, the risks are low because मैं अपने मन से कर रहा हूं. So I know what the risks are. So therefore, risks are low. But if the situation is involuntary, which is I did not volunteer for it, the risk perceived by public is higher. So now, the situation which we know is, so far as staying in nuclear plant is concerned, people consider it high. The risk perception is high. Psychologists think that if something is involuntary, the risk is tend to be high, and therefore he is making this conclusion. So basically a link has to be established between this and this, right? So if you consider something to be involuntary, the risks are considered to be high, and people said that staying in nuclear plant, the risk involved are higher as compared to X-rays. So if you combine these two, the connection would be that people consider staying in nuclear plant to be involuntary. That is what the assumption. This is not given to us. What is an assumption? An assumption is a missing premise. Now, this thing is not given to us in the paragraph whether people consider living near a nuclear plant voluntary or involuntary, but they consider it to be more risky. And the other criteria is if you consider something to be involuntary, that is higher risk. So basically, if we combine the two, the missing premise is people or public generally consider that living near a nuclear plant is not voluntary, but going for an X-ray is voluntary. Now, it would make sense. If I were to give you a simple example to elaborate the same logic, let's say you have a choice between going to a gym or for swimming. To stay fit, you have two choices. You can either hit a gym or you can go swimming. Public generally prefer a place which is more fun. Therefore, public would prefer going for swimming. Exactly same structure. So I've given two choices. So gym, swimming to stay fit. Which one people generally prefer? Something which is more fun. Therefore, they will go for swimming. Did I tell you which one is more fun, swimming or gym? No, I did not. But I concluded on the basis of criteria that people will prefer swimming, which means I'm assuming that swimming is more fun. Same structure, guys. So you could have pre-thought here also. And therefore, so basically, this is what is given to us, that nuclear power plant was judged a much greater risk. This was the criteria, involuntary high. So basically, the answer would be D. Not all of the survey respondents considered living near a nuclear power plant to be a voluntary risk. They would have considered it involuntary. Therefore, they have given it high on risk rating. Choice number D is a different way of saying that people consider staying at nuclear power plant to be more involuntary. All right. Let's come to question number 2. Again, a very interesting question. You may pause the video and go through it and then come to the answer. I'll explain the answer. Okay. Which one of the following is an assumption on which the argument depends? So first of all, you need to figure out what is the argument. The argument is this. Audience will therefore judge performance of method actors to be more realistic than the performance of traditional actors. Same thing. Nuclear power plant, there's a criteria must have been given. So same, if you go through the paragraph here, to be realistic, to be considered a performance as realistic, a criteria is given to us. What is the criteria? Behavior generally associated by audience with emotional states. So it's not how good you are acting or how beautifully you are acting. The criteria is the behavior generally associated by audience. So let me give an example. So let's say there's an actor A and there is an actor B. Both are performing the part of a teacher. Now, generally, let's say generally, audience think that teachers are irritated, right? They're always irritated. So let's say that's what people associate a teacher with. कि अगर teacher है, तो बहुत ही irritated होगा. ठीक है? That is what audience associate. Now, actor A act brilliantly, but he portrays a teacher as a very calm, funny person. Okay, and actor B is not that great an actor, but he shows a teacher as someone who is really irritated. So between these two actors, who will the audience consider as more realistic performer? Yes, it will be B, because B's performance is showing a teacher as someone that is generally associated with a teacher. Audience consider a teacher to be generally irritated. That is how B has portrayed a teacher. So this role will be considered as more realistic. The criteria is not how well you act. It is how is that behavior generally associated by audience with emotional states. Okay. So this was always in assumption question, a criteria would be given. Now, then two kind of actors are given to us, traditional and method. Their process is given. Traditional actors, they tend to imitate. Method actors, they tend to recorrect their personal experience, from their personal experience. Now, this part is irrelevant for us to consider whether who would be realistic, because the criteria is something else. Criteria is not the process. And are we given anything about the how does the traditional actor fare on the criteria? Nothing, no information is given, but a conclusion is made. What is the conclusion? That method actors are more realistic. So if method actors are more realistic, which means they would satisfy this criteria, which is this. So this is what an assumption. You did not tell me, I have to assume this, that method actors, the process is not important, but they would be able to achieve this. So this is what I have to assume. And from the choices, if you look at the choices, where do I get this? In choice number B. The behavior that results when a method actor feels a certain emotion will confirm to the behavior that is generally associated by the audience with that emotion. So I can always pre-think. That's what I've told you guys. In assumption questions, if you're not able to pre-think the correct answer, that means you're not thorough with the logical structure of that particular question. Okay? While solving these questions, if you have doubt in any choice that why not A or why not C, you may drop that message in the description below, and I'll respond to that. Okay. Question number 3. This one would be simpler as compared to the previous two. Okay. So which one of the following is an assumption on which the argument depends? So what is the argument? The profit rights of computer software writers remain unprotected. Zawade. This is what the conclusion is. So if I were to deconstruct it, two laws are given. Unfortunately, for computer software writers are covered by none. And so the conclusion is they will not be protected, right? So let me give a simple example. Let's say you want to study economics from some teacher, and there are two popular teachers, teacher X and teacher Y. Now, unfortunately, when you go to them for teaching, they say that they are filled. So far as the batch size is concerned, they are filled. They are completely filled. And from that, I'm assuming, making a conclusion. Therefore, let's say this guy is Ramesh. Ramesh wanted economics, tuition of economics subject from two teachers, X and Y. Both the batch is completely full, so they can't teach Ramesh. Therefore, Ramesh will not get eco tuition, right? So two teachers he wanted to go, they are completely packed, so therefore he won't get any eco tuition. So what is an assumption here? The assumption is there is no other economics teacher. There are only two economics teachers where Ramesh can go. There could be more than two teachers, right? So similarly here, there are two laws that protect different categories. This particular category does not come in either of the laws, therefore no protection. So what are you assuming? You're assuming there is no other law which can protect their rights, which means similar to the example which I give you, there is no other economics teacher. There could be some other economics teacher also. Na? So for this conclusion to be valid, something that I have to assume is that there is no other law. And the correct answer for third would be B. So B is the correct answer, right? Let's go to question number 4. Again, interesting question. The advertisement argument depends on assuming which of the following. So what is the argument? First of all, so with this new program, the extra money you can save on travel is more money you can spend on the purchase. This is what the argument is. Now the structure is, so let's say if I use my card and I'm just throwing in numbers randomly, I'm using my credit card and I spend 2,000 rupees. Let's say I was going from Delhi to Mumbai and the cost is 6,000, right? From Delhi to Mumbai, the cost is 6,000. Now, if I use these cards, I get credit worth 6,000. I get 6,000 points. I get 6,000 points, which I can use to purchase anything else. So that I want to purchase, let's say, grocery. So if I were using some other card, I would not have got 6,000 points. I use this card, I got 6,000 points. Now I can use those points to buy grocery. So that's why I'll save money and overall I can spend on these purchases. So it looks good. What is the assumption here? If I spend money on this card, I'll get some points and those points I can use to purchase something else. So the assumption here is, first of all, the assumption is that I travel, right? What if I don't travel at all, right? So if I don't travel, then I will not be able to use this card. So first assumption is I travel. And second assumption is the place that I travel to, the airlines, they fly to that destination. Let's say if I go to Delhi to Mumbai and this airline does not have a flight which connects Delhi to Mumbai, then I will not be able to use the card. So fundamentally, there are two assumptions. Assumption number one, that I do travel. And second, this airline support that destination. Now let me look at this one. That compete with worldwide airlines will not help me draw the conclusion. The balance on purchase you charge with an X card is subject to an interest. Again, not required. The purchase you normally make, no. You are likely to travel to at least one of the destinations serviced by worldwide airlines, because only then I'll get points, right? If I don't travel to a place which is serviced by worldwide airlines, I won't get points because I will not be able to use my card for that particular airline. So fourth, the answer is E. I like this question, question number 5. It's a good question. Just go through it. You will pause the video and then come to the solution. All right. The explanation offered by psychologists accounts for the Mainlandians' behavior only which of the following is assumed. So first of all, there are two things. Psychologists would have said something and Mainlandians have done something. So what they've done should be explained by this behavior if we assume something. It's similar to that nuclear plant and X-ray question. All right? Okay. So here the main thing is, what is the criteria given so far as your choice of entertainment is concerned, that the people would prefer their own language. This is the explanation offered by psychologists, that given a choice, so anyone would like to be entertained in his or her own language. Okay, fair enough. Now, they've given us two sources of entertainment so far as Mainlandian is concerned, TV and reading. What about the criteria? The criteria is own language, you would like to get entertained more. So far as TV is concerned, it has been provided to us that, you know, there is TV viewing or the programs are not in their own language. But what about reading? Just go through the paragraph. Have they mentioned that the people read in their own language or they have books in their own language? This is not given to us. This is not given to us, right? And then conclusion is given. So obviously this would have made sense because you like to entertain on your own language, in your own language. But this part will only make sense using this explanation if you had given me this information that there are lots of books in their own language or people read books in their own language. Then the explanation given by psychologists would make sense, but I have not been given that part. So I have to assume that there are books that people read in their own language. This is an assumption which I have to make. Own language. उसको उसने कैसे बोल के रखा है? If I look at the choices, if I come back to the choice, look at the correct answer. This one. At least some of what the Mainlandians read for pleasure is in the Mainlandian language. Because if they're not reading in their own language, the psychologist's explanation that they are reading more because they want to get entertained more in their own language will fall flat. So I have to assume that they are reading in their own language. This is not given to us. All right. Now, the final question, I think it's a very simple question. I've done this question with lots of people. Let's say if I've done this question with 1,000 people, more than 950 people would have got this question right. So try to pre-think the answer. What do you think would be the correct answer? Okay. The argument relies on which of the following assumption? What is the argument? If adults cannot represent the interests of adolescents, then only by giving adolescents the vote will these interests be represented. See, because, and what is the rationale given to us? Adults have the right to vote, so should adolescents. Why? This is the basic argument. Admittedly, adolescents and adults are not the same, but to the extent that adolescents and adults are different, adults cannot be expected to represent. Okay, so mainly adults are different from adolescents, therefore they can't represent their interests, and therefore adolescents should be given the right to vote. If you look at the choices, the fundamental assumption that you're making is that adolescents' rights are to be represented. If there is no need to represent the right, then whether they are different or whether they are same will not make sense. If I don't need to do something, why do I work on areas to do that things, right? So therefore, the correct answer here is C. This is a fundamental assumption. Look at, if I were to read it like this, if this was the first line, adolescents should have their interests represented. Adults are different from adolescents. They can't represent the interests of adolescents. Therefore, adolescents should be given the right to vote. It would make sense. But if adolescents should not have the rights represented, then that falls flat. So the basic assumption here is that adolescents should have their interest represented. So with this, guys, my first phase of assumption practice questions is done. I think we've done around 8 plus, I think we would have solved around more than 25 questions on assumptions, or more than 20 questions for sure. So these are good practice questions, and this will cover the entire range or the all the kind of variations that you can expect on assumption questions. So if you haven't done this, go back to my other classes of assumptions, finish the exercise. As I've told you, the best way to make the most of these classes would be to first go to our portal. It's a free sign up account, attempt the questions on your own, and then come to the video, because then it will be much more productive. If you like a content, please subscribe to our channel. Also give your suggestions. What videos would you like us to come up with? If we find that those will actually help you in your CLAT preparation, we will make videos on that. Also, test series are extremely important, guys, right? So I can say that you cannot come across any ranker who would have said that, I cleared the exam without writing the mock test. So you have to write lots of mock tests. The mock series have to be really good. We have invested a lot of time, right, and energy to come up with the test series, which comes very close to the actual examination, and we give you multiple scenarios to practice with. So, and therefore the catch line, coaching kahin se bhi, test series from Mentors Capital. So do subscribe to our test series and you'll see the difference yourself. The quality of the test series, the quality of questions is really great. So see you in my next class. Bye bye. Take care.